Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedom, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Spika. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up. To stand up and fight back. Today's program is about our judicial system. Judges. The question is, are they accountable? And who are they accountable to? Are they accountable to you, the people who pay their salaries? Are they accountable to the executive branch or the attorney general or even the legislature? We're going to ask some hard questions today, and hopefully we'll get some answers. But today's show is about a judge caught on film making an accusation against an average citizen, asking them a simple question. The results were not favorable for that person because apparently they asked the wrong question. And the fact that he has it on film makes it a very interesting case. We hope to get to the bottom of this today, and in future shows, if you want to be heard, please get in touch with us. If you have a story and it's vetted, this is the place to speak up. Well, thank you for joining us, and I want to introduce my guest, Bradley Jardis.
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 Yes.
Not Jarvis.
Not Jarvis. No, it gets confused often.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Representative.
Bradley, you were a police officer at one point.
Yeah, I worked in New Hampshire for 3 different municipalities. I went to both of New Hampshire's police academies, and I served from 1999 until 2010.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Were you in the military prior to that?
I was not. I actually almost went into the Coast Guard before I graduated high school. I was actually sworn in as a police officer 3 months before I graduated high school. I had to have all letters from all my teachers and the superintendent to go to the director of the police academy, who was now the assistant commissioner of safety, Earl Sweeney, who gave me permission to be sworn in even before I had a high school diploma.
Wow. Well, again, thank you for your service. You look like you're barely 20.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. Wonderful. So let's get a little more background about you. I know that you're a police officer. Is there more that we should know about you first?
Well, I was born in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
in Exeter, New Hampshire, and
so you're not a Free Stater?
I'm not a Free Stater, no. No, I like to refer to myself as a native Free Stater, though,
Okay.
because I think that New Hampshire traditions are very strongly intertwined with the statements that the Free State Project makes, which is why I have so many friends within the Free State Project, because it seriously is like the most ethical, decent people in the world who just want to leave other people alone are all moving to the state that I was born in and know and love, and it's very nice.
What makes New Hampshire the magnet for Free Staters? And what is a Free Stater? What is the official? We hear this term all the time.
Yeah. Well, the Free State Project, the best description I have of it is that it's a bus. Meaning it's sort of like a proverbial bus that you can get on to go to New Hampshire if you want more liberty in your lifetime. Meaning if you don't want the government to tell you that you have to wear a seatbelt when you're in your car. If you don't want the government to tell you that you have to wear a helmet when you're on a motorcycle. Like, these are personal choices that you should be able to make for yourself without the state getting involved and forcing you to do so.
Okay.
So there's a gentleman named Dr. Jason Sorens. I believe he's a professor at, I believe, Yale, not Yale, but a college in New York. And he came up with the idea for the Free State Project, and that is to move a percentage of people to a state with a relatively low population, and that percentage of people are to be libertarian-minded. Mm-hmm. And libertarians simply believe that people should be left alone to lead their life how they see fit, unless they hurt somebody else.
Right.
And New Hampshire has a really strong tradition of that. People like to be left alone, and basically, unless you're hurting somebody else, the state should be leaving you alone.
Right. So a lot of people get the idea that libertarians are just these guys who just want to smoke pot.
That's not true at all. Some of the smartest people I know, including several serving state representatives in New Hampshire, are nothing like that at all. I mean, these are people who are very active in their community, who care very much about the state, and have uprooted their life to move here, to make New Hampshire, to basically keep New Hampshire awesome and keep New Hampshire following the motto of live free or die, because a couple of election cycles ago, I mean, there were some laws introduced that there's just no rationalization of how the live free or die state could, not allow people of the state to carry firearms into the legislative office building. There's always examples of overstate intrusion.
Right.
But, people moving from the Free State Project simply want the government to leave people alone.
Okay. So you're here today to talk about Jason Talley, and you're representing him, correct?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Okay. It's kind of a long story, and it requires connecting of some dots. So that's what I'm going to try to do for you and your viewers.
Okay.
Jason Talley is a gentleman who moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. He is an independent journalist, and he has a website called Talley TV. He used to run an organization called Bureaucrash, which is a national organization that is, it's libertarian minded. So he spent some time down in D.C. Working on things like that. He's also a former member of the United States Air Force who held the top secret security clearance and worked on some very, sensitive things for the federal government.
So Jason's not one of those guys that goes around and keeps the government in check, is he?
Well, I think there should be more people that go around and keep the government in check.
Just kidding.
No.
So it seems to me that the press could do a little better job at keeping some of these politicians and government officials. I know I'm a politician, but transparency is the name of the game for me.
Well, the term politician in New Hampshire is a little bit different than the term politician elsewhere, where we have the third largest representative body in the world. Like I'm sure your viewers watching this right now know you and can stop by your house and say what's going on.
And they have.
And they have, and they might, But no, Jason, he's a good guy who believes very firmly in his political ideology. And he moved to New Hampshire and has been doing journalist work. And he's been doing his work out in the Keene area of the state. And most people I know, before I left law enforcement, it was widely known that activists that moved to New Hampshire to find more liberty in their life, a certain type of them moved to Keene. And I know them all, and they're actually really good people if you get to know them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them have earned my respect. And they engage in activism that I may not approve of, that I may not want to get involved in, that you may not want to get involved in. But it is truly my opinion that they believe that they're doing the right thing to try to reduce the size and scope of government intrusion. But at the same time, I think their PR skills could use some touching up, because they've done some things that have offended the community and upset people. But, they just led the opposition to the Bearcat out in Keene, which is this military police vehicle. It's basically a tank that civilian law enforcement should have absolutely no business possessing. And the federal government gives out these grants to police departments to buy these things. And
wait, the police department has a tank?
The city council just voted and approved to get them a tank. I believe their website that the Keene activists did was thanksbutnotanks.com. And
I'm still mulling that over.
Yeah.
Why do they need a tank?
I don't think they do. I mean, what are they so afraid of? I'm a police officer for 11 years, and I never needed a tank.
Serious? Oh.
I've only seen the tank in use once, and that's when it was used to raid a house for literally what turned out to be a bag of marijuana. So that's typically what it's used for. I mean, if this was used for things like the Hollywood bank robbery shootout, I don't think people would be complaining. But this is a military-style vehicle in Keene, New Hampshire, and I don't blame them at all for standing up for that. And I think they did a really good job. I mean, they were working with members of the community, one of the city councilors.
Well, let me ask you. You say these Jason and the people that he runs with, if you will.
Yeah.
These aren't the occupiers on Wall Street, or are they?
No.
Okay, so this is a totally different group.
Yeah, I know some people in the Free State Project who are familiar with people involved in the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement is sort of more liberal or democratic type institution than the Free State Project is, which is libertarian. Right.
They don't endorse violence.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Absolutely not. In fact, violence is viewed. If anyone shows up and starts talking about violence, they're ostracized quite quickly. In fact, what we're about to talk about, someone did just that, and I ended up reporting them to the U.S. Attorney. There's absolutely no room for violence in political discourse.
Okay. All right, let's get into the meat of it. So, Jason, you're representing Jason in the Cheshire Superior Court.
Right. In New Hampshire, state law allows you to represent someone as long as you're a citizen or a person of good moral character, right? And who gets to decide that but a judge? And so I decided to represent Jason Talley because his case presents an excellent example of what I would call publicly judicial corruption in New Hampshire. His case, he's charged with contempt of court, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. And to understand why he got charged with these things, I need to go back a couple of months to June 28th of last year. A gentleman named Adamo Freeman, his legal name is Adam Miller, he chooses to use an alias. He was at the Keene City Hall, which also doubles as the Keene Circuit Court District Division. And he was there early in the morning handing out flyers, and the presiding judge, Judge Edward Burke, arrived for work. And he had his camera with him, and he tried to ask him questions on camera about a contempt order that Judge Burke ordered a few days prior. And what the judge did was he put one of Adamo's friends in jail for 5 days for wearing a hat inside a courtroom. And
really?
Yes, in jail. He did 5 days in jail for direct criminal contempt for wearing a hat in the courtroom.
I didn't know that was illegal.
It's not illegal.
Okay.
But it's criminal contempt, which is not written down anywhere. It's this magical power of the court that's, comes down through common law. And if you basically do anything to offend the dignity of the judicial proceedings, the judge can hold you in contempt and put you in jail for 6 months. I believe it's up to 6 months under the case law. I'm fairly sure. So anyway, this resident of Keene was put in jail for 5 days for choosing to wear a hat in a courtroom that ostensibly belongs to him. And Adamo was at the city hall with his camera, handing out brochures, and Judge Burke walks in, showing up for work. Adamo walks up to him and he says, Judge Burke, can I ask you some questions about a hat and how that constitutes contempt? The judge keeps walking, starts walking up the stairs. He then said, don't you think it's kind of ridiculous to waste taxpayer money on putting someone in jail for wearing a hat? I personally think it's incredibly ridiculous to waste taxpayer money to put someone in jail for wearing a hat. I mean, it's about $80 a day, I think, the last time I read one of the legislative reports on how much it costs to keep someone in the county jail system. Mm-hmm. And essentially, this is, this court order that Adamo was asking the judge about is essentially the judge waving his pen and throwing a citizen of this state into jail because his delicate sensibilities were offended that someone was wearing a hat in his courtroom. Like, I can understand if someone was making noise, if someone was actually doing something to be disruptive, but someone who simply wanted to wear a hat, whether or not they're doing it to try to goad the judge, I mean...
This is not like a cat in a hat, right?
Yeah,
one of these big top hats.
Right, it's not like a sombrero, it's... I think it was like a typical knit type hat, Okay. It wasn't anything flamboyant, nothing that would stick out like neon colors. So he asks Judge Burke, he's respectful, he calls him sir, calls him judge, addresses him by his official title, and asks him about the use of taxpayer money. Judge Burke, Adamo's walking with him up the stairs, and he gets to the point where the judge opens the door. And as soon as Judge Burke opens the door to go into the courtroom, he says, bailiff, this person is threatening me about a decision I just made. And then he starts to walk off. And Adamo says, I'm not threatening you, I'm asking questions. And then Judge Burke stops, he turns around, and he points, and he says, that's a criminal offense.
What was a criminal offense?
There is no criminal offense.
So what did the judge say was a criminal offense?
He didn't specify what the criminal offense would be. But what happened to Adamo was he was arrested and put in the Cheshire County Jail for 2 days on the charge of improper influence, which is a statute specifically designed to prevent people from interfering with judges, and also public officials. But judges, there's a section specifically just for judges. And he spends 2 days in jail, and he basically up and down begged the Keene police to watch the video. But I honestly don't blame the Keene police, because if I was a police officer and I had a district court judge telling me this person's threatening me, I'd believe it too, and I'd arrest the guy. So the Keene police basically got mistreated by Judge Burke because he lied to them. And so Ademo goes to jail, spends 2 days before the county attorney releases him and drops all charges.
All right, let me ask you a question. Was this all on video?
All on video.
Where can this video be found?
Anybody can watch this if they go to copblock.org/improper influence. And another thing I want to point out is that Ademo is a journalist. He's got his own website called Cop Block. It's about police accountability. In the interest of full disclosure, I believe in police accountability, and I write or blog at copblock.org. So it's not. There seems to be this blurring of the line within the government system that unless you're WMUR or the Union Leader or the Nashua Telegraph, that you're not the real media. But Part 1, Article 22 of the New Hampshire Constitution says the freedom of the press shall be inviolably preserved, or should be inviolably preserved.
I know that some of us legislators have been actually talking about that. What constitutes somebody who is a journalist or media?
Pick up a camera and go somewhere public and record something with the purpose to show it to other people, and I would say you're a member of the free press. Interesting.
Just for the record, you don't have a record.
No.
You're not a disgruntled employee?
No.
You've not been fined by the police department or castigated or just... you don't have an axe to grind?
I have never been convicted of a parking ticket.
Okay.
Ever in my life. I've never been convicted of anything.
So for the viewers' edification, what's your beef?
My beef is government officials not following the Constitution and behaving corruptly. That's my beef.
That's the bottom line.
Right. And I think the government officials out in Keene think they can get away with it because the group of Free Staters who have moved there are not always politically popular. So, maybe we can, get away with this and just sweep this under the rug and no one's going to notice because it's the Free Staters, it's the Keeniacs, it's the Free Keene people.
Right.
But no, I mean, the government, whether or not somebody believes the government applies to them, and there's a lot of anarchists who say, I'm not part of the state of New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, okay.
There's people who say that, but the fact is, all government employees within the state of New Hampshire swear an oath to the Constitution, or most of them, that people who have the power like judges do, they swear an oath. And that oath requires them to treat all people equally, not some people differently because politically you may disagree with them.
Well, let me ask you, where are we in the stage now? We've got the improper influence.
Okay.
Right. You got it on film. People can look at it.
Yep.
What happened?
So, Ademo gets released. 3 days later, the administrative judge of the circuit court, a gentleman named Judge Edwin Kelly, he issues an order saying that nobody in the Keene District Court can film in the public areas outside of the courtroom. In his order, he says that certain members of the public have accosted the presiding justice. He used the word accosted. Now, I don't know about you, but I, as a citizen of this state, find it offensive that a judge would call another citizen of this state asking constitutionally protected questions about his conduct as a public official an accostation.
Does it fall into the gray area?
Oh, that's...
I hear that all the time.
Well, if the state could criminalize this, they probably would try. But the fact is, he was not trying to influence the judge's decision. All he did was ask questions.
Can I interrupt you on this? This whole idea of asking a judge a question, any question, could that construe an improper influence? For instance, Your Honor, Rule 1.2, waiver of rules. I know that you have the right to make administrative rules, but waiver of rules isn't good. Could you change that? Would that be considered an improper influence of a judge? Are you following my questioning
I
here?
see where you're going with this, and the first thing that people in New Hampshire need to know about the circuit court system in New Hampshire is that Rule 1.1, it says relief from failure to comply or something like that, and it says that a justice at any time can disregard any of the court rules for any reason that they see fit. So you have this book of rules that doesn't mean anything because the first rule says you don't have to follow the rest.
Exactly.
And
I'm sorry for laughing, and I know this is serious, but it tickles me because where are the guidelines and who's making the rules and who's following or who's not following the rules seems to be a constant theme in redress of grievance.
Well, it's when they write the rules themselves, and I know we're going to get to this, but they're able to write the rules themselves because the people of this state have entrusted them to do so through Part 2, Article 73A of the New Hampshire Constitution. And look at the result.
It's been on the books since 1978.
And there's some question as to whether or not the Secretary of State was supposed to put the words the way he or she did at the time.
The last line. All right, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay.
So, Administrative Judge Edwin Kelly.
Yeah, so Judge Kelly issues this order saying that you can't film. The presiding judge has been accosted. Anyone who watches the video can see that Ademo did not accost this man. He asked him questions that the judge himself may have preferred not be asked, but the fact is Ademo is a citizen of this state, and he has the right to ask questions of his public officials, at least according to Part 1, Article 8 of the New Hampshire Constitution. So he asks these questions, he gets put in jail for 2 days, the charges get dropped, and then Judge Kelly issues this first order. The same day, the head of the Superior Court system, Chief Judge Tina Nato, issues an order saying that Judge Kelly's order for the circuit court system, which would cover the district courts and the probate courts, his order is now in effect in the Superior Court. So the same order that Judge Kelly wrote saying the judge was accosted, which anyone can see is not true, the same one that he says the judge was accosted, the chief judge of the Superior Court, she enacts that in her court system, under her authority, granted by the people under Part 2, Article 73A in Supreme Court Rule 54. So she enacts this rule. 14 days later, the presiding judge in the Cheshire Superior Court issues a rule that says you can't possess a video camera of any kind within the courthouse, meaning they were taking cell phones from people because they had a camera in them. They're effectively completely shutting down freedom of the press in publicly owned buildings 3 days after a judge gets caught on camera committing a crime. And that crime could be either false reports to law enforcement, RSA 641-4, or it could be official oppression. And you know, the second I saw this video last July, I said, oh, this guy broke the law. I mean, you can't do that. I've arrested people for this before. So I looked into it. I talked to Ademo about it. He filed a complaint with the Keene police. They referred it to the county attorney, who referred it to the attorney general, who referred it to the Sullivan County attorney, Mark Hathaway, who just released 2 weeks ago a report clearing Judge Burke of any criminal conduct in that hallway there that anyone can see on camera. So now we have these...
So what you just described is that this judge can break the law and there is no accountability.
None.
It's like this official wringing of the hands. How is the Attorney General involved with this?
Well, okay. So there's now 3 court orders. There's the one that was issued by Administrative Judge Edwin Kelly. There's one that's issued by the Chief Judge of the Superior Court. And then there's one that's issued by the presiding judge, which means the head of the Cheshire County Superior Court. And that one came out on July 15th. That's the one that says you can't possess even a cell phone that has a video camera.
Now, these aren't, again, I'm just going to clarify, these are not rules that are passed out by the legislature.
These are not laws passed by the legislature. These are laws passed by the judiciary.
Okay. Just for our viewers' edification, are judges making laws?
Yes.
That flies in the face of a republic.
It absolutely flies in the face of the republic. But if you read Part 2, Article 73A, that the New Hampshire judiciary is currently fighting tooth and nail and clawing at to keep on the books, it says that rules promulgated by the Supreme Court have the force and effect of law.
You know, this isn't the first time I've heard this.
Oh, I know. I know you're asking me so I can repeat it.
Okay.
So now we've got these 3 orders, right? And these orders restrict the constitutional rights of everybody. Why did these orders come out? Because a judge got caught on camera ordering a false arrest, which is a crime. There's probably, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a former police officer who's like, wait a second, no, this is illegal. And nothing has been done. So Jason Talley, who moves to Keene, he's a journalist covering some of the stuff that goes on out there. He goes in September into the Superior Court, and he's arrested for possession of a camera. This camera's on his belt. Right? It's just a camera on his belt.
This is something totally different.
This is the 3rd court order. This is the impact of the law that was made by the New Hampshire Judicial Branch. This is the impact. So now this journalist, who all he wants to do is bring a camera into the courtroom because he wants to document public acts by public officials in public places. Because he did that, he was arrested.
Don't they have a stenographer to record all these things?
This did not happen in the court building. This happened at the court security checkpoint. And so he's arrested at the court security checkpoint for possession of a camera on his belt by bailiffs as he's walking to the clerk's window. You can see video of Jason Talley's arrest.
Well, don't they have to go through like some type of scanner or something?
After he went through the scanner, the court security officers they wanded him, and then they found it on his belt. And as they were like manipulating it and they were touching it and they were walking away, Jason, I don't know if you're familiar with the Cheshire Superior Court, but the security checkpoint is right by the clerk's office. So Jason starts walking. He starts walking to the window to file his request to film in a public building, right?
Oh, okay.
So he wants to record court proceedings, public proceedings, with people paid by the public.
Were these allowed in the past?
Cheshire County has been notorious for restricting press freedom, so much so that I believe it was 2006, WMUR actually had to take them to task on it, and WMUR sued, and that's where Supreme Court Rule 78 came from. And Supreme Court Rule 78 just had a hearing a few months ago, and I was present at this hearing, and I was happy to see that my former district court judge was part of this hearing, along with Speaker O'Brien. And I looked at him, and I said, I'm happy to see that Judge Cullen is on this panel, because this judge knows who I am. This judge, knows that I'm not full of BS, and I'm not, like, just coming up with stuff. And I said, I want you to know, and I said this to the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court, the Speaker, judges are breaking the law in Cheshire County. And then as a result of that, other judges are restricting the Constitution. And then as a result of that, people are getting arrested for it. And to me, this is public corruption. Like, you can't take constitutional rights away from everybody because a judge broke the law taking the constitutional rights away from one person. Like, this flows together. Like,
it looks like there is an appearance of collusion here.
Yes, there's an absolute appearance, and I went to the Attorney General's office and filed a complaint. I told them, I said, if this is not a cover-up, it sure looks like one, and I would like you guys to look into this. And I know the Attorney General's office is working on it because I've been in contact with them. I've reported to them. Some people have been publicly online threatening Judge Burke's life because of this. And there's no way that, I am ever going to be held responsible. I've taken a lot of flack for it because I have some friends who don't like when you report things to the state. But the fact is, this is getting publicized because of me, because I'm taking the time to come on your show and taking the time to write things online. And the last thing I want to do is put anyone's safety in jeopardy. What I want is public officials to be held accountable when they swear an oath to the Constitution, and this is not happening here.
Interesting. So you were up at the Capitol today.
I was.
And listening to some hearings?
Unfortunately, I missed some hearings because I was in the Merrimack District Court defending a friend of mine who was challenging some charges she got. And I found it interesting. Whenever I show up at the court buildings now, I get security escorts wherever I go. That I had 3 court security officers that followed me out of the courtroom when I went to use the restroom while I was waiting for my friend and my client's case to be heard.
Do you feel like there's a level of intimidation that's starting to ratchet up?
I think that they're trying to intimidate me, but I'm not intimidated by it. I pulled one of the court security officers aside and shook his hand, and I said, do you have any idea why you're following me around? And he said, I'm not following you around, And I said, look, I'm trying very peacefully to hold judges accountable when they break the law, and New Hampshire's Constitution says there can't be 2 classes of men, and when you have one group of people, the people who work in the judiciary, breaking the law and completely getting away with it, and then everyone else who can't get away with it, there are 2 classes of men, and that is a real problem.
So you're not a member of the Bar Association?
I am not, and which is a legal monopoly that unfortunately has a lot of control of the state of New Hampshire, and I think the bill that just passed the State House, which would remove the stranglehold that the Bar Association has on the practice of law here in New Hampshire, is a great thing.
What bill is that?
I'm sorry, I don't remember the bill number. I know it passed like 198 to something. It was a pretty decent vote, so it's on to the Senate.
Okay. So not being a member of the Bar Association, I believe that there was a Supreme Court order or rule that says that in order to practice as a judge or an attorney in the in the state of New Hampshire, you have to be a member of this bar association.
Well, I would say that any rule passed by the Supreme Court about who can serve as a judge would be most likely unconstitutional, because judges are judicial officers. So the same reason why I think that a county attorney can't be required to be an attorney, because the office of county attorney is established by the people in the Constitution, and I don't think the legislature can change the requirements. Just like I don't think the Police Standards and Training Council can require that a high sheriff be certified by them, because these are constitutional officers that answer directly to the people. Interesting.
So if people want to get in touch with you and get some further information on this particular case, how would they do that?
I would suggest sending me an email or calling me. I've published my one of these hacker groups who saw what was going on with Judge Burke decided to, they call it doxing, like when they release all your information to the public. So I posted it online, like in solidarity with Judge Burke, here's all my information too. And I posted my phone number, and I've been getting phone calls from blocked numbers from people who sure sound like attorneys, telling me, like, yeah, people know that the New Hampshire, or people in that field know the New Hampshire judicial branch is corrupt. They just don't want to do anything about it. Like this case with Jason Talley, I subpoenaed 4 judges, and I attempted to have the clerk of the Cheshire County Superior Court sign these subpoenas for me, and they refused to do it. And that is a crime called official oppression, when a public servant refuses to do a job inherent in the nature of their office. You know, I'm not a justice of the peace. I need them to sign my subpoenas. And by them, saying, no, we're not going to sign those for you, Mr. Jardis, they're essentially deciding the merits of a subpoena, which they have no right to do.
So if you were going to, I didn't know an average person could do that, make a subpoena.
The only reason I can is because I have a power of attorney with Jason Talley, who, because I'm acting as his legal representative, it's called attorney-in-fact, when someone who is not a lawyer represents someone else in court.
So you could subpoena anybody in the state of New Hampshire germane to a particular case?
I can subpoena anything germane to the particular case so long as it's relevant. And this is an important point for your viewers to realize, that it's not the clerk's office to determine what's a relevant subpoena or not. If I was to subpoena somebody and it would be considered harassment or improper, the court could hold me accountable. If I was to go to the Attorney General and make a false report to law enforcement like Judge Burke did when he had a demo arrested, I could be arrested by the Attorney General for what I went and reported to them.
So you went to subpoena 3 judges?
I went to subpoena 4 judges.
4 judges?
Yes.
And they're immune from subpoenas?
Well, when the clerk's office refused to sign my subpoenas, I went to State Representative George Lambert, and he's a justice of the peace also. He signed my subpoenas for me. I explained to him, I presently am an officer of the Cheshire County Superior Court because I represent someone who's facing charges there, and I'm trying to get these subpoenas signed because I want these judges to appear and answer questions about why they restricted the constitutional rights of Jason Talley as a result of their colleague breaking the law on camera. And the Attorney General, through the Associate Attorney General, a gentleman named Richard Head, who's actually a pretty nice guy, he's filed an appearance in this case on behalf of the Attorney General, saying that judges and their thought processes that lead up to them issuing court orders cannot be questioned. So let me give you a scenario. Say, for instance, a judge passes a court order which has the force and effect of law under Part 2, Article 73A of the New Hampshire Constitution, and that rule says you can't possess Trident gum in a courthouse. And the judge does that because Wrigley's gum pays him $2 billion. Effectively, what the Attorney General is saying is that you have no right to question that judge and that judge's misconduct in placing this order which restricts your rights, even when that order is tied to what is or what appears to be corruption.
Because of immunity.
Because of judicial immunity. Right. Exactly.
Do you think the people of New Hampshire know this stuff?
I don't think the people of New Hampshire know this at all, but I think they should. There's a very tragic thing that happened last year. A man doused himself in gasoline and set himself on fire on the front steps of the Cheshire County Superior Court. Whatever this man did in his life, to make mistakes, to screw up, to be a bad parent, whatever he did, the fact that he would pour gasoline on himself and set himself on fire is a statement that I think should not go away just because the government officials want it to. I think people need to look into why this is happening.
Right. Interesting. So where do we go from here?
Well, Jason Talley's trial, and by the way, I've officially asked that the Attorney General take this case and dismiss it. Take this case from the Cheshire County Attorney and dismiss it because it either purports to enforce a corrupt court order specifically, or it enforces what could be a court order that just appears to be corrupt. Either way, it's an appearance of impropriety, and I think that the jury, at least, should know about it when it comes up for trial. But again, the Attorney General is trying to block me from bringing the witnesses in who are part of this criminal conspiracy because they're judges.
Well, you have your legislative branch of government, general court, you have your judicial branch, and then you have your executive branch. Where does the Attorney General's authority lie?
The Attorney General gets his authority from the Constitution and gets his authority from statutory law, but as an agent of the executive branch of government, the Attorney General's responsibility is to enforce the laws passed by the people.
So when one of the branches of government does, I understand that there is certain immunities. I mean, if I'm legislating, you can't sue me for the legislation that I go up because I'm acting in that.
That makes sense.
And judges enjoy that same, you know, obviously they would be getting sued left and right if people disagreed with them. But that doesn't mean I can, if I'm in the process of voting on a bill, I can't take my gun out and shoot people.
No.
I mean, that's so extreme, obviously. I'd be breaking the law.
Right.
Not that a judge would do the same thing, but I'm just trying to get a parallel. The Attorney General would step in and say, listen, you broke the law, or you struck somebody while you were in the process. Let's go that. Let's do that. Well, you smack somebody in the head while you were legislating.
Yeah.
That's against the law. That's a violation of the law. And he would come in and enforce that law. If a judge did that,
you would hear crickets because nothing has happened yet. I mean, judges are not being held accountable for their criminal acts committed in public buildings, in public, on camera.
So is the Attorney General representing the judicial?
Yes. And in a motion I filed in the Cheshire County Superior Court, I brought up the fact that I believe it violates Professional Rule of Conduct 1.7, which is conflicts of interest, because the Attorney General's #1 responsibility should be investigating crimes against the people of the state of New Hampshire, like Adamo Freeman, and not representing judges to keep them out of court and to keep them from being held accountable.
So the Attorney General's office is not the official lawyer for the judicial branch?
I believe the judicial branch has a general counsel, but according to state law, the Attorney General represents state officers when they are sued or in certain situations. There's a lot of interesting things that happened 12 years ago. April 1st, actually 12 years ago, the New York Times ran an article about how the Attorney General, it was Attorney General Philip McLaughlin, forgive me for pronouncing that wrong, he came out and said that 2 New Hampshire judges broke the law, including Chief Justice Brock. And Chief Justice Brock was impeached by the House, and he wasn't convicted by the Senate, but he had to resign, and so did another Supreme Court judge. And
so there was a certain level of accountability.
There was 12 years ago, but right now, I mean, the things that I saw working in law enforcement, at least as far as the family court is concerned, were just absolutely insane. I mean, I've called judges on the phone before about emergency restraining orders, which are these restraining orders you can get when the courts are closed.
Right.
Go to your local police station.
Right.
And I've called a judge before, and I said on the phone, Your Honor, this girl is here. I don't believe her. These are the reasons why I don't believe her. There's no abuse, which you have to issue this order. And also, she had one 2 weeks ago, and she's just abusing the process. And the judge's response to me, it's not going to be verbatim because it was years ago, but basically it was, well, we just want to be sure, and we just want to make sure everything's okay. And when judges approve these things, these orders force police officers to kick people out of their house, to take their guns away. I mean, this is a big deal. And when I started seeing how they were playing fast and loose with making me kick people out of their own houses, that's when I really started to question the integrity of the judicial branch in this state.
Interesting. So where do we go from here? I asked that earlier. Is there anything that you want our viewers anything else that we could?
Well, I would encourage people to watch the video
right.
Of Adamo getting arrested, and I would encourage people to contact the Judicial Conduct Committee here in New Hampshire and let them know that they will not stand for judges that are that are committing crimes. I mean, judges doing misconduct. I mean, there's been a bunch of scandals over the last few years. Judges sleeping on the bench, some things having to do with money. But here, what we're talking about is a judge like believing he has the power to just wave his hand and have someone put in jail for 2 days because he doesn't like him. And I'm sorry, but I've sworn 3 oaths to the New Hampshire Constitution, and I find that to be particularly offensive coming from a judge who's supposed to be held to the highest standard of accountability, not the lowest.
There are some good judges.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The judge I was in front of today was a really nice guy in Merrimack. Judge Cullen, who I brought up before, who I used to testify in front of in Exeter District,
Right.
I respected him so much because he had an excellent temperament. He was very fair. I lost a lot of cases because he was fair, and that's the type of judge you want to have. But this, I mean, Judge Burke, I mean, there are so many people who have stories about him,
Right.
and to allow a man to make like 130 grand a year off the backs of the taxpayers to continue to be so disrespectful to the law, to his oath, to the people, it's inexcusable. And this is why contacting the Judicial Conduct Committee and contacting your state representative to let them know that the Redress of Grievance Committee is such an important thing. You know, when I knew the Redress of Grievance Committee was such an important thing was when all the judges started coming out saying we need to get rid of this.
Well, I don't know how long it's going to last. I know we have a lot of protection under Speaker O'Brien at this point, because he's the one who actually created this committee. It's actually a legal committee, and
Absolutely.
I think the value of it, if nothing else, it holds the government accountable. It allows the people to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is going on. You, in the legislature, need to look at this."
Yeah.
And we're hearing case after case after case. Now, the opposite side, and I'm just, they're always playing hardball with us, so I'm just going to, come out and say it. They've not brought one grievance.
Yeah.
Not one grievance to this committee, and we're up to 32 now, and the word's just getting out. Maybe in addition to talking about some of the legislation that's coming up there, you could support or have the people should come out and say, "Hey, look, I got a case. I want it to be heard. I want the legislator to know that they dropped the ball. You guys are screwing up. I wish Congress had one of these." I don't know if they do.
The reason why, when you deal with the state, I mean, it's sort of like you're dealing with fire, because it's a tool that can help you. It's also a tool that can hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized that I'm making an unfortunate reference, but when people who are in positions of public trust abuse it repeatedly, what happens is people pour gasoline on themselves and they burn themselves alive so other people can learn about what happened to them. Like, perhaps if the redress committee, if this guy had heard about that, perhaps he could have gone there. Like, perhaps there could have been more. Perhaps judges should be elected in this state so they can't be unaccountable.
One of the links that I discovered is that the guardian ad litem that was on that gentleman's case happened to be on another case that has presented itself before our committee. And he's actually a doctor, Dr. Vandenberg. And I want him to come on the show just to talk about his story. And for the viewers' edification, I want them to know that the people that come on the show, they're vetted. Their information is not just somebody off the street. There has to be a high standard of credibility before you can come on the show. And I like people to actually come and sit on the redress of grievance, mostly people that are vetted through that process. Whether there's a finding or not is not as important as can you back up your statement, because things are still in the works. And the whole idea of this show, the whole idea is for people to speak up, to bring to light things that need fixing. And I'm not accusing anybody, but I certainly am seeing a lot of smoke.
Well, one thing I learned in law enforcement is that there's 3 sides to every story.
Yeah.
Typically it's what, domestic disturbances are pretty common in law enforcement. So it's what he said, what she said, and the truth. And what's great in this particular case is anybody can watch this video and see what arrogance Judge Burke uses when he lies directly to his bailiffs and says, this man is threatening me. There was nothing Ademo Freeman did to threaten him except ask him questions about putting a citizen of this state in jail for 5 days for wearing a hat. Like,
and it all started on something simple like that.
Yeah, you know, and okay, so a lot of the activism that happens out in the western part of the state could be described as annoying, could be described as histrionic, could be described as...
It's a college town.
Yeah, it's a college town.
Right.
They got a lot of stuff going on. But in this particular case, the activism that has happened there has ferreted out this particular mindset amongst government officials there. I mean, anyone can see this on tape. This is a judge who did this. These bailiffs trusted him because he was a judge. Keene PD trusted him because he was a judge. I would have trusted him because he was a judge. This judge needs to be held legally accountable.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Any final thoughts for our...
No, thank you very much.
I was about to say for our customers, but for our audience. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Maybe you can come on again and give us an update at some other time.
I would love to. Thank you, Representative.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us for Speak Up.